Hi everybody, I hope you're doing well. I thought I'd jump on a video today and speak about HOCD, homosexual OCD. You probably know by now that that was my main theme, and I just think HOCD is one of the most relentless and stubborn themes of OCD. It's easy for me to say because that was my main theme, but just generally because we give a lot of importance to like sex and relationship in our lives, and we almost cling on to that part of us that we think we are. And you know, it especially is seen as a taboo topic in some cultures, not so much in the West, but you know, definitely out towards like Asia and that sort of area. It's a lot more taboo, right? So it's another reason for HOCD to really like dig its heels in. So in this video, I'm going to like go right into the nuances and the depths of HOCD, like all the little things that it entails, because I think it's really important to cover. So yeah, with that said, HOCD is going to feel absolutely 100% real. It is. So if you're straight, it's going to feel absolutely 100% real that you're gay, right? You're going to be so convinced. It's going to produce like these feelings, these sensations that just say that you're 100% gay, that you're not straight, etc. Or conversely, if you are gay, then it's just going to say that you're 100% straight, you know, no ifs or buts. And there's going to be, along the journey with HOCD, there's going to be a lot of sort of distressing, intrusive thoughts, images, sensations and urges that are going to have to be worn. Groin response was also like a massive one for me, and it's just utterly convincing, because it just convinces you that you're gay, right? So, and it will be in moments of like intimacy and sex when you think it shouldn't be there. That's when it's really going to rear its head. So you might be having like sex with your partner, and you know, where you think you should really be enjoying it, OCD might just throw up all these, you know, strange sensations and intrusive thoughts, and it's going to feel utterly real. And your levels of attraction towards the sex that you don't want are going to feel completely genuine, and conversely, your levels of attraction to the people that you want to feel attracted to, they're just going to be non-existent. You feel like you're living a lie, an imposter. You know, I remember there was times when I'd be in a bar with my friends, and they would point out like an attractive girl, and I would agree with them, but I felt like I was living a complete lie, because with HOCD in there, I just didn't have, you know, I just didn't have those feelings at that time, because I was chasing them, and I was just so scared. And like, what does OCD do? Well, it just pulls it away. So you're going to feel, especially in the early stages of HOCD, you're going to feel utterly compelled to do compulsions due to the realness of it. So that's going to be rumination and checking levels of your attraction to both sexes. It's almost like an internal forcing. So for example, in my instance, you might look at a girl and you're like internally forcing yourself to try and be attracted to them, but it's irrational. You know, you look at somebody without HOCD, they either are or they aren't. They're not doing anything. They're not trying. It's not a doing action. It just sort of comes to them without them even trying. And I think that's such a key part of OCD. Even so, you're not going to be attracted to everybody. So you know, there was instances where I was doing that for every girl that I saw, and obviously OCD just pulls it away, and you know, it just makes it feel even more real. You're not going to feel attracted to everybody. And yeah, so just in terms of the compulsions, one of my main compulsions was just double checking I was straight, right? So, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was spending a lot of time like doing masturbation. When I was super triggered, like I remember I'd be in college, just sat in a classroom, and I'd have to get up and leave the classroom like 3 or 4 times a pop, because I'd be triggered, and I'd just be so scared that I was gay that I'd have to just double check my sexuality and run to the bathroom. And you know, I was making up lies that I had like bladder issues, and it was just the realness of it was just so real. And then obviously I would obviously double check that I didn't find like guys or gay stuff disgusting. So you know, I'd be on like gay porn, checking that I'm not attracted to it, and just double checking that I found that disgusting. But you know, you're not going to be able to prove to OCD, you know, that it's always going to win. You can't be doing that. I didn't realise at the time, but all that I was doing was just fueling the cycle. In a relationship as well, you might engage in compulsive sex, you know, with your partner. You might just be so afraid that you feel like you need to just keep on having sex just to double check that you're attracted to them. But you know, that can be very counterproductive. And I'd also say you might be scared of having sex with your partner because you're really scared of those images, sensations and urges coming up. So just in that sense, I will do another video on relationships and HOCD, but just in that sense, I'd say if you can, especially in the early phases of the HOCD, I would say that you need to try and cut back on sex, because especially in those early days, you're going to feel really, really compelled to double check your sexuality and double check that you're straight, right? So in those early days, if you can, maybe for like a couple of months, just cut back on the sex with your partner, and you're just going to have to be upfront and open with them and just say, look, I'm suffering from OCD here. I need to do this for my long-term recovery. And then potentially after that, you can like maybe start introducing it again with more of like a balanced approach. But obviously there's no line in the sand. But if you're absolutely compelled to do these compulsions in the early stages, and you know that having sex with your partner is feeding that, then I'd probably suggest to try and cut that down. Also as well, in my instance, obviously this is only going to be the case for guys, right? So I remember I'd put a lot of emphasis on like sleeping well, because with guys, like testosterone is produced in sleep, and I thought like if I got a really good like deep REM sleep, then I'd have those high levels of like testosterone, which would make me fancy girls more. But you know, that was completely compulsive and done me no good whatsoever, because all that did was just make me scared of not sleeping, right? So I was so intent on sleeping well that I'd actually just, you know, try and force sleep, and then in the end it would just elude me. And that's classic insomnia, right? We think there's all these sleeping pills and like bedtime routines that we need to have, but in the end you're probably not sleeping well because you're scared of not sleeping, right? That's the main driver. Yes, there could be other things involved as well, like sleep apnea, etc., but I'm not going to get into that. And yeah, so that didn't help me. What else was I doing? Yeah, I'd be talking about girls constantly, to the point where it was all about, like, it was the only thing I spoke about with my friends, right? I just wanted to come across as straight. I was just scared of rejection. I was really scared that if my friends thought I was gay, then you know, they dislike me and reject me. So it's actually very, very like compulsive, just speaking about girls with my friends. Very, very weird looking back. Yes, you do that, but you know, there's other things to talk about with your mates, like football and whatever. So, and then conversely, I try to spend a lot of time with girls to like come across as a ladies' man. So I had a few like girl mates who I've always had. I remember I'd be in like social settings and out for drinks and whatever, and I'd try and spend all my time with those just to try and come across as, you know, even though I am straight, just to try and come across as straight, like, to my friends. But in the end, that OCD backfired there, because it was just saying, oh, well, surely if you've got all these girl mates, you just look like gay best friends. So obviously that wasn't going to work either. There's loads of other things at play here with OCD. With the HOCD, it's so intricate. There's so many different things. So I was making sure I wasn't speaking in a non-feminine way. So I try and speak with like a deep voice, and I try and like act masculine, and yeah, it was all just very, very compulsive. And the only reason I was doing those compulsions was because I was scared, right? You know, when the fear starts to come down, which I'll go into a bit later, the compulsions just start to come down. But it's almost like when I was in the cycle, I was just waiting for this like answer to come to me, like this moment of certainty. It's almost like I thought I'd wake up one day and I'd have my brain like tell me with 100%, you know, tangible clarity that I'm straight. But obviously OCD is never going to give you that. It's never going to give you that, you know, with other themes like POCD and harm OCD and hit and run OCD and everything. There's not going to be that 100% certain answer. So yeah, you're just not going to be able to get that. What else did I do? Yeah, I'd be scouring the past for like levels of attraction, and that's obviously not going to cut it either, because OCD is just going to meddle with that and move the goalposts, right? It's sort of like self-reassurance. So I'd look back at my past sexual relationships and I'd be like, oh yeah, so was I attracted to her? Like, was I really aroused when I was, you know, having intercourse with her, etc. And obviously OCD is just going to meddle with that, because it's going to give in that present moment with HOCD is there, it's going to give more weight to the realness of the HOCD, right? So it's like when you're scared of being a bad person, the OCD is completely going to overlook every single like the OCD is going to overlook every single good act you've done and just immediately say like black and white that you're bad. And it's like with HOCD, it's going to say that even though that you've had all these past sexual experiences and you think you are this sort of person, yeah, it's going to say that you're gay. And I remember with that as well, I'd say to myself, oh, well, I'm at least bisexual, because I've definitely liked girls. But that's still not going to cut it, because with the good and bad example there, it's when you're sort of looking at either side, then the OCD is going to give the weighting to the side that you're most scared of, right? So, and yeah, another thing as well, you need to like forget the person that you thought you were, or the person that you thought you are, right? You know, trying to figure that out with HOCD is also, you know, very, very compulsive. This is where the unconditional self-acceptance comes in, right? You know, this is an irrational concept in itself, saying that you should be this certain person, because as people, we're changing so much on like a day-to-day basis, you know, in terms of our behaviours, our actions, the words that we speak, the things that we learn, the things that we see, the things that we hear. So you need to forget the idea that you are this certain person, or that you need to be this certain person. You need to be a bit more flexible. You need to have that framework of like unconditional self-acceptance, which is what really, really gets under OCD. And in HOCD as well, there's a lot of core fears at play, right? So you have the fear of rejection, you have the fear of being gay, the fear of missing out on like good sexual relationships, and then, excuse me, a big one for me was the fear of fear. So I spent years absolutely shit scared that I was gay, so my nervous system is constantly like pumping anxiety around my body. And once the HOCD like started to wear off, I would be left with like crippling anxiety symptoms. And you can see my recent article on the OCD Recovery Instagram to learn more about fear. But yeah, that was a byproduct of my HOCD. So all of those need to be broken down. So, you know, would being gay, right, would that really be 100% terrible? Would that really be a fate that's worse than death? Would that really be so bad that I could never have some happiness in my life? Well, I could definitely be happy if I was gay. How do I know that? Because there are some other people out there who are gay, right? So, and have very, very happy and fulfilled lives. So clearly it's my perspective here that's like fueling it, right? Yes, it does take a lot of work, and I know there might be some, like, you know, religious and societal concepts in there as well, which doesn't make it easy to dispute and break down, but you can break it down. You need to chip away at it bit by bit. Also, you know, fear of social rejection. Is that really the end of the world? If people like didn't like you, or people rejected you, you know, why is that so scary? Like, what can you still do if that was the case? Could you still walk? Could you still talk? Could you still exercise? Could you still do your hobbies? Yes, you'd probably find that you could, but it does take a while to see that, obviously. And yeah, there's, as well as the fear, there's obviously a lot of avoidance behaviours that I just touched on earlier. So especially one for me was just like not looking at guys. Like, I just wouldn't look at people in the eyes, which looking back was very, very silly, but I just felt so scared that if I looked at someone and I found them attractive, I just found that so scary. And you might also avoid like certain places, you know, like you know, certain gay areas. So for example, there's like some gay areas in the UK, especially like in London, and I'd avoid going to places where I'd be triggered. I'd avoid like gay music, you know. It's very, very silly looking back, but I wouldn't listen to artists like Elton John because obviously he's gay, and then I thought that if I listened to gay music, that means I like gay stuff. And I remember I'd wear like really, really dark clothing. I'd always wear like black t-shirts and black jeans and grey stuff because I didn't want to come across as like being eccentric in any way. So the way that this thing can just get you is just absolutely like crazy, right? And you need to be aware of all those little compulsions. It might even be in like the way you walk as well. Like you might be scared that if you're walking in like a feminine way that you're gay. So you need to not watch the way you walk as well. But obviously you're only watching your behaviours because you're really scared of the feared outcome. And when you start to break that down, all these like sort of subtle compulsions, they start to come down. And obviously as well, there's a big reassurance element in HOCD as well. So it might be very, very sneaky. You might double check with your partner, or I don't know, your mum or dad or your friends. You might be like, oh, I've always been straight, that's what I used to do. Like, haven't I always been straight? That's what I would do. I'd say that to my mum and my best friend, and they'd be like, yeah, you've had a girlfriend and you've always liked girls, and you know, you seem pretty like masculine and straight and etc. And that's just the way it gets in there. So reassurance in OCD is never the answer, and you just need to be careful of those sneaky ways in which you're using it, because obviously reassurance is what partly fuels the cycle, right? So with with this, like with HOCD, you need to get yourself to a point where it doesn't matter if you was gay or not. You're not going to be able to see it for what it is, because it just feels so real. You're not going to get the 100% answer, so you need to get under the worst case scenario. And like when you do that, you start to see things more clearly, and you're less fused to it, and you're spending like less time ruminating, and you're spending less time like chasing those feelings of attraction, and when all that just starts to settle down and tail off, and you just start to see it more clearly. Like I said before, there's people without HOCD, they're just not trying. They're not trying to be attracted to people. They either are and they are. And yeah, you just need to be really, really careful with that. Obviously, those internal compulsions, they're going to feel almost automatic at times. But like I said, as you just gradually bring the fears down, then they're going to gradually stop. Also, as well, I just wanted to share a funny avoidance behaviour that I used to do. It just popped into my head actually. So I would actually not like people's photos on Instagram, like boys' photos, guys' photos, because I was scared that if somebody saw my name at the bottom of that photo and that I liked it, that they'd think I was gay. Like how silly is that? Like for me, looking back now, it's just very silly. But it's just what it does, right? It's what OCD can do. It just feels so utterly real and convincing that, you know, you just have to avoid. And I think as well, you just need to be compassionate with yourself. Just do what you can. There's going to be times when you make mistakes, and you're going to feel so compelled to like do compulsions and you know, avoid certain things. But you just need to, you know, take it bit by bit. And just finally, a bit that helped me was, even if you was gay, right, you're saying that the entirety of you is gay, when that's just not the case. You're also a person with hobbies, behaviours, certain values and interests, and it's just like saying a good or a bad person, you know. The worst case scenario is that it's only a part of you, not your whole life. So it shouldn't be made out to be such a big deal. So, yeah. And then just finally, just irrational beliefs, you know, it'd be awful if I was gay. I must be straight. Being rejected by society is 100% awful. And I must have certainty on my, you know, sexuality. Those are a few beliefs that you can definitely break down. So, yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Comment down below with any questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.